Welcome to the Autonomic Healing Podcast. I'm Tom Pells.
And I'm Ruth Lorensson. We'll be unpacking what it looks like to activate your brain to holistically manage stress and trauma that bring healing to the mind, body, and spirit.
Being free to live authentically as humans.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get this conversation started. Well, hello, Tom. We are here with the ABCs of Thriving, and I'm excited for this conversation. We've got the letter V.
Yes, V.
And you came up with the word that we're going to talk about today, and it's brilliant, actually, and we've already had a bit of a conversation around it, which is why I'm excited about diving in and unpacking this one. But do you want to kick us off and let us know what we're looking at in this little series, the ABCs of Thriving, letter V.
And V is for Verity.
A word that maybe people aren't as familiar with these days.
Yep. Verity is a belief, an idea, or a principle that's generally accepted as being the truth. So truth and verity are different.
Yeah, share why. That's important.
Truth is truth. Everybody knows what truth is. We may be comfortable with the truth. We may not be comfortable with the truth, or that famous line from a movie, "You can't handle the truth." But we all know what truth is. It's how things are. Verity is a belief, an idea, or principle that is generally accepted as being the truth. And that's from the Latin veritas. And no apologies for borrowing a V word for our ABCs of Thriving from the Latin alphabet. But truth, and not just truth, verity is transcendent truth. Veritas was transcendent truth. The truth is the microphone is sitting on a stand between us. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And it is. The transcendent truth, verity, I think of in terms of, and veritas, as how do the words spoken into that microphone, our conversation recorded and then downloaded, how is that impacting people's lives? That's transcendent truth.
Yeah, I love that.
It's truth and the impact of that truth. If I could use that analogy.
Yeah, that's so helpful. And so we're using this idea of transcendent truth and being people who get to embrace transcendent truth as a very important part of thriving.
You can't thrive without it.
So share more about that then.
If we're not dealing with the truth, we may jeopardize surviving. There's a famous yacht sinking, and the truth was that somebody on board apparently left some hatches open. And this is probably a very seasoned crew, but the truth was they weren't responsible, or whoever. Somebody had compromised, and then people didn't survive.
Yeah.
All sorts of things happen that the truth is something other than what people are thinking, how they're acting, and the image of themselves or their behaviors, things like that. If we're not dealing with the truth for what it is, we may jeopardize surviving, and we're certainly not going to be thriving.
So there's a need for us to... I guess a need, if we want to thrive, we need to be humans who get comfortable with the truth. And I think, and we'll go into this in just a sec, but there's a lot of reasons why people aren't truthful. They're not truthful with themselves. They're not truthful. And it's not just, and we'll get into this in a sec, but it's not just about lying. No. It's about a distortion of the truth. It's our mind can come up with a different variation of the truth. And that causes all sorts of dysfunction and harm.
Impacts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, veritas, from which we get verity, that transcendent truth. Curiously, when someone is intoxicated, inebriated,
mm-hmm.
their inhibitions are down. It's unfiltered, it's unguarded, and they just say what they really think.
Which is why in the morning after
they're going,
oh no.
Or what did I say? I don't remember. But that's veritas. Things just are what they are. Mm-hmm. We think the way we think. We believe what we believe. We act how we've acted. And all of those have had impacts. And that's the truth.
And what that reveals in some ways is that people have they create another version of themselves. When they drink, the real version of themselves comes out. Maybe there's a little slurring and all that stuff, but there is a level of, the mask has dropped.
Yep.
But the fact that the mask is there in the first place that's the point. It's like
our guards are down.
Yeah, we're saying there's another way. We don't have to have all the guards up. What's it look like to be a truthful person and be present as a truth? This is who I am. Yep. And so
I like to talk about verity, veritas, the truth unfiltered, the truth for what it is, as liberating and supporting thriving. Because if we're not dealing with the realities, how are we going to thrive? We can't, because we're not dealing with the realities.
We just manage. I think we end up managing ourselves, or others. We manage it instead of being free to be who we are.
Yes, but by doing that, we're not managing ourselves. We are, because if I'm not dealing with the truth, I'm not managing myself. Mm-hmm. So the more we try to manage that, and we are not truthful, the more we're potentially not even surviving. And we're certainly not thriving. Mm-hmm. Truth is what it is. To thrive, you combine truth with love and truth with impact, not intentions.
Yeah.
That's when thriving can occur. So a lot of times we focus on our intentions.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that's not what I meant.
Yeah. But that has no bearing on the truth.
Right. The truth is how did that impact someone's life? Yeah. How did it impact our own life? Mm-hmm. How did it impact other people's lives?
I mean, my kids do it all the time. They're in a fight. I didn't mean to do it. I wasn't. But they're avoiding truth. They're avoiding even being able to empathize with or learn from the situation that just occurred when one of them hit the other or whatever it was. And because they're not dealing and present with the truth, then they're not growing as human beings if I don't intervene,
Yes. So when we were earlier talking about this, I mentioned that during an 18-year career in forensic psychotherapy, the clients that I treated had to take polygraphs about a specific or multiple areas of very specific human-to-human contact. And they would have to take polygraphs about that. And I mentioned, imagine what it would be like if you were seeing a therapist and everything was verifiable and could be checked by a polygraph. Mm-hmm. And I want to clarify something that is a very common misunderstanding. Polygraphs are not lie detectors. They assess physiological responses to questions that the person knows the truth And when the physiological response is distorted, it means that what they are expressing is not the truth. So how that works is that if I was to say, Ruth, are you sitting on the couch?
I'd say yes.
Have you been fully disclosing about all the times you have sat on a couch?
No.
So, and different ways that we interpret or express the truth. Mm-hmm. We might say, well, maybe, and this is kind of a ridiculous analogy, but it might be that there's some negative consequence for just sitting on the couch. Mm-hmm. So you'd say, well, no, I wasn't sitting on the couch. I was lounging on the couch.
Yeah.
Or I was relaxing on the couch. Because relaxing on the couch is better because sitting is bad or something. My point is, it's adding something to or leaving something out that is also untruthful.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said to me earlier, you asked me the question, we were talking about polygraphs, and it was funny because I'm guilty, listeners. Tom caught me out. But you said to me, have you ever broken the law in driving? And I said, no.
I'm a safe driver.
I'm a safe driver. And then what did you ask? You said, well, have you ever broken the speed limit? And I was like,
Well, your original response was, no, I drive the speed limit.
And then I thought, oh, hang on a minute.
Wait.
And the reason I said that is because I deem myself someone. I know people who do it on purpose, right? So I know people, and I'm not one of those people. So I don't. You don't
habitually.
And what I said to you is that I don't mean to go over the speed limit. And then
that's when I got into the intentions.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's not about intention. No. It's about impact. And
it's not that intentions in and of themselves don't matter. They do. Impact matters far more.
But the point is that I put a narrative on my own understanding of truth. Have I ever broken the law on driving? Because it is breaking the law if you go over the speed limit.
It is.
And so there's all sorts of justifications there. Everyone does it. I'm not trying to do it, and I'm, maybe it's only because there's a bit of free road and all the other cars are going that. And it's only 5 miles anyhow.
I would be driving unsafely if I went the speed limit because everybody else is going 10 or 15 over it, and now I'm an obstacle and I'm not driving with the flow of traffic. I'm trying to be a safe driver by breaking the law.
So there's loads of reasons that go on in my mind,
motivations,
right? Which is why I would arrive at the no, I don't. I've never broken the law. But the truth is that I have. I'm admitting it on Podcast Nation.
And is there a driver who hasn't?
Exactly.
That's intentionally, unintentionally, inadvertently, circumstantially. Verity is the truth for what it is.
So let's just talk a minute about what are the versions of not telling the truth?
Yes.
Because I think that's helpful, because there are, like you said, this isn't a lie detector test, the polygraph.
Right.
But one of the versions of not telling the truth is blatant lying.
Yes.
So, but there's others. So talk about that. So
people would fail polygraphs because they're just out and out lying. They know the truth. They're not saying. They're saying something other than. So when I would give expert testimony, I would be sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, which is an indicator of there are things other than lying, which are ways that we can be untruthful.
Yeah.
So one of the ways is what we're saying is true, more or less. And we equate true with truth. So what I'm saying is true. And I'm going to say that's the truth, because what I'm saying is true. And true is involved in truth. But I can say one thing that is true and leave out all sorts of other things, or add things to it. So what I'm saying is true more or less, But true more or less is not the truth.
Mm-hmm. So it's like leaving out context or adding something actually in that
makes it look better, sounds better, and I don't look so bad. And
so I would imagine that's a lot of what a lot of people do. You know, that most people do lie, outright. But I think a lot of people fall into that category more of like expanding.
Yeah, what I'm saying is true more or less. So I count myself as a truthful person.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just saying things that are true more or less. I just want people to believe that, and I want to believe that myself, that I'm being truthful. So another way is what I call relabeling. So I am acknowledging that I engaged in X, that I did X, I thought X, but I'm calling it something else. I am a safe driver. I speed. I go with the flow of traffic. The truth is one a safe driver if they don't obey the speed limits? No. The speed limits are there for a reason. That may be a reason I agree with. It may be a reason that makes sense to me. It may be a reason that doesn't make any sense. And why would this be a 25 mile an hour speed limit in this area, or 45, when clearly everybody is driving over that and there aren't a host of accidents? But somebody with some understanding of people entering, people leaving, all the rest of the greater context says, this is safe.
Yeah.
Do this. And this is the speed limit. Mm-hmm. The point is that I can relabel something. Mm-hmm. But now I'm not dealing with the truth.
So it's like creating a narrative that is acceptable to ourselves. And what I find interesting, Tom, with the polygraph thing, from what you've told me, is that the reason why the polygraph work is that the brain knows the truth.
Yes.
Right. And so it creates a reaction.
It anticipates your physiological response because it knows what the truth is. It prepares to say it, and the person with their mind changes that.
Yeah.
And then there's a physiological adjustment that's necessary to say this when the truth is that. And it prepared to say that. Oh, now I have to make a change and it's this?
I find that amazing that our bodies are wired. Isn't that incredible that our bodies are wired for Verity?
Yes.
Like, this is actually the most natural. The fact that and you don't have to have a polygraph. I think even as kids, like when like my kids telling a lie, I can see it all over their face. My kids are not good liars, and I'm glad of that. But their bodies are showing.
Yes.
The bodies show what is, it's not correlating somatically even with when they tell a lie. But the point that I was going to make was that the brain knows the truth. So we know that from polygraphs, but it's our minds that's coming up with these other ways of translating it, or like, and there's reasons for that because I would imagine because we're scared, or there's all sorts of reasons why we don't want to tell the truth. But I find that really fascinating, the fact that, and I think it's really helpful to understand, like, what is our mind doing?
Yep. So it's one of three. We're either lying. What we're saying is true, more or less, or we're relabeling it. We're calling it something other than what it actually is. In any one of those, we're not thriving. Because the brain itself deals with the truth for what it is. And it wants to deal with that. My point is that if we're going to thrive, it's because we are thinking in harmony with the way our brain processes information. if you think about it from that perspective, the brain processes information. If I am not doing that with my mind, my brain and I are not on the same page.
Or your body.
Right. Right, because the mind has an impact on the body. That's called executive function. And the brain orchestrates the activity of the body. And when those are not on the same page, thriving isn't going to happen.
And so I wonder whether, there's all sorts of scenarios where this could be played out. But I think the starting point, when I think about the starting point, especially when in terms of thriving with Verity, with being truthful. Transcendent truth is with ourselves.
Yes.
And so we pay the price ourselves, like we just described, even just physically what is happening. Our bodies are not in sync because our brain and our mind are at odds.
Yes.
So we pay the price when we're not truthful with ourselves. So that's a starting point.
Well, you gave an example earlier of when you're driving and you're in a hurry or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like my driving skills are under scrutiny right now, but it's okay. But I do, I would deem myself mostly a safe driver. I do, and I actually feel like...
And it doesn't mean you're an unsafe driver.
But there have been days, those days where you're in a rush or something's happening, and I've been in driving and it's fine and I could get away with it maybe, but I'm distracted or I'm, the phone's going and whatever, or I'm just...
And no one else has ever experienced that. No, we all do.
But I remember, and this has happened multiple times with me, Tom, where it's like my brain, or I get a thought in my head of... kind of sort yourself out, Ruth. Drive better.
Yes.
Like focus. Come on, snap out of it because you're not driving well.
Yep.
And it's like, it's my brain telling me the truth of that situation.
Your brain, a belief, an idea, or a principle that your brain knows is the truth. And that is transcendent. And it was transcending what was actually happening.
And it's remarkable because in those situations I adjust and I go, and I think, none of that's worth it. I don't want to be in an accident. I don't want to cause any other harm to stop. Like, it helps me, that thought, when it's happened, it helps me go, the texting can wait, whatever it is that I'm trying to multitask with can wait, let's just refocus. But that is my brain taking over and, stopping the cycle of dysfunction in that morning,
Yes. And driving or whatever it is, we're living our lives. We're engaging in things. And to thrive is to deal with the realities for what they are. Verity. And I have an idea, a belief, a principle. That's what we've been talking about. That's verity. And that allows us and supports thriving. Now, truth, and I want to be very clear about this, truth in and of itself simply is the truth. I think for thriving, we want to contextualize or pair truth with love. And we often don't.
Yeah.
There are people who pride themselves on being truthful. Ow. Thanks. Do you even care about me? Does my well-being even matter to you? Because what you're saying is truthful, but there's no love in it. And then there is the opposite version, which it's all about love and being loving. But the truth, it's uncomfortable, that's messy, what might be the reaction, or what do I think of myself? And then we just focus on being loving.
Yeah.
But the truth is what sets us free. Love makes it possible for us to hear the truth and to internalize and embrace the truth.
Yeah. I can so relate to that, Tom.
But truth without love, I like to say, is just a license to be unhealthy.
Yeah.
And to harm ourselves and others.
Yeah, and lots of people, I don't know if you or our listeners have encountered people who have told you the truth, and it's the truth, but it's like the lack of love. It's I don't know, it's harmful, and then it takes a lot longer to get the benefit from the truth as well.
Or you don't.
And also, on the flip side of it, what I was going to say was that for me, in my experience, I think over the years I've erred on the love side. And it's not, I'm a truth person, but I find it really difficult if, someone I really care about, I need to tell them the truth. That feels hard. And sometimes I haven't told them the truth, and because I wanted them to feel good, or I didn't want them to feel bad. And I think over time for me, and it's still really difficult for me to do this, but over time I've just chosen, for me actually, it's a sign of love. If I'm willing to tell someone the truth of the situation, it really is a sign. It's like the highest sign of love for me, because it's so hard for me to do that. But I have to do it in a loving way as well. But so that's something I feel like it's been a bit of a life lesson for me to try and take the courage. It's okay. Yeah, I mean, there's that verse, isn't there, in the Bible of the wounds of a friend. But actually, if it's done in love, there's something that can be really beneficial over the long term. And what I've found as well is that the people that you're willing to do that with in a loving way, actually the depth of relationship that you end up getting is far greater than often what becomes a very superficial relationship if you just stay in that kind of pleasing mode.
Thrives.
Yeah.
Yes. With ourselves and others.
Yeah.
There are those who are much more oriented toward the other.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're all about the truth.
Yeah.
But there isn't any love in it. And all it does is damn. Okay. Yeah, that's the truth. So what? Do you even care about that? Does that matter? Why are you telling me this? Because you're so virtuous and truthful? There's no thriving in that. It's just damning. The truth in the context of love, and love in the context of truth, is thriving. The other aspect of this is truth and intentions, or impact. We may have the best of intentions. The intention to be a safe driver. But the reality at times, if it's not the case, this can be surviving or thriving. So I am not saying intentions don't matter. They do. If you have intentions to be detrimental, to deceive, to whatever, deal with that. That matters. But if your intentions are to be loving and kind and supportive and all the rest of that, but the impact of what you're doing isn't that, deal with that. And I think when it comes right down to it, that yes, we want to have intentions that are about our own and other people's well-being. That's important. And certainly deal with if your intentions are not. But the more significant thing is, what is the impact? How is this impacting me? How is it impacting you? How is it impacting the world that I live in? Someone can have the best of intentions, but the impact is horrible.
Yeah.
And someone can have not so great intentions at times, but the impact of them dealing with that, or what it is, can cause thriving and can result in that. So love, intentions, impact. Now we're talking Verity, because that is a transcendent truth. It's a truth in a context that supports thriving.
Yeah. And just as you were talking about intentions, I was just thinking about the just in some ways it's worse, like having good intentions and allowing that to be your narrative to ignore Verity.
And what I think are my good intentions
can be like worse, because then you're not. The only way we're going to learn and grow is to face the impact of what we're doing, regardless of intention. And when we do that, we can actually, really change. We can change and learn and grow, and that's the impact of thriving with Verity. Yeah. But I've loved this conversation, Tom, and we are really making our way through the alphabet. So next time around, what is it? W?
Yep.
So that'll be interesting. But thank you for the conversation, and I love this conversation on truth, Verity, freedom, thriving.
Transcendent truth. In the context of love and in dealing with intentions and impact, that's thriving. You've been listening to the Autonomic Healing Podcast.
Join us next time as we continue in our conversations with Tom. If you're interested in pursuing your own autonomic healing journey and want to find a practitioner, visit our website, innerworkings.org. See you at the next episode.